Sometimes you're a fire, sometimes you're a ghost. Sometimes you can give me all the things that I love the most. Sometimes you're a queen, sometimes you're a curse, and sometimes a whole lot worse. Yeah, nobody's quite like you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Blue Hell Worldwide here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and today we try and make our way through to the knockouts of the Europa League. Potentially we'll be playing two of our last three games against Millonarios and Crystal Palace, and we'll see what we look like at the end of those and see what we're going to do in terms of our next episode. So if you're looking forward to it, then please do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and have watched a few episodes or just the one of the series and enjoy what you see, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. But since yesterday's episode where we had a cup double, which if you missed I will leave a link to above my head in the top right corner, we have played quite a few league games and one more Europa League group game as well. So first things first, we'll catch you guys up on highlights from all those games. First up, we had a home game against fourth place Santos in the league, and we got off to a good start in this one. Zusi with a corner whipping it in, headed out to a Yongo. He'll pick out Busio here and he'll launch one right through the goalkeeper's hands. Too much power on it, and we go 1-0 up after 10 minutes. Unfortunately, not too long after that, Santos were able to equalise at the 16-minute mark. Felipe Jonathan, somehow that ball finds its way through to Lucas Braga. Very sloppy at the back there from us, and it was 1-1 at the 16-minute mark and at half-time. But in the second half, late on, and a bit of sloppy work there at the back from Santos, allowing Felipe Hernandez to get a goal off the bench. And then with 3 minutes to go, we wrapped up 3 points. Polito charging onto that corner into the top right corner, and that is a very good 3 points for us against fourth place in the league. You can see we look slightly the better team throughout the game in most of the stats, and we're able to pick up a good 3 points against the team who were quite high up on the table in Santos. Off the back of that, another league game, this time a trip away to take on Vasco da Gama, and again we go off to a good start, opening scoring around the 10-minute mark. Wintle making his way down the right edge of the box. Olasunde puts the ball in. Johnny F. and Russell gets his head to it to put us 1-0 up, but yet again we conceded shortly off the back of that. Vasco da Gama here in a good area of the pitch. A nice ball forward there for Thiago Leas, gets past the goalkeeper at the near post, and it was 1-1 yet again at halftime. And then in injury time, we grabbed a winning goal. Oyongo puts the ball in. Polito gets his head to it. Nice finish into the bottom right corner. And again, we pinch 3 points against the team who were a fair way above us on the table. Pretty quiet game, truth be told. That one not as exciting as the previous one, and we were probably second best for most of it, but just enough to get the 3 points and hit a slightly better XG in the end, a little bit more clinical with our chances than Vasco da Gama were, and we continued a good little run of form that we had going at that point. Off the back of that, the rotation team had their chance in the Europa League, a group game against Cercle Bruges, a team who we did beat in the first round of matches, and this was a very quiet game, but we did get the only goal with 12 minutes to go. And Mecha being brought down there, no penalty given, but then Louis Martins picks out Reyes and puts that into the bottom left corner with our only shot on target in the game, and that gets us 3 points. They can feel a bit hard done by their Cercle Bruges, but with that one chance we created the most XG of the game. Did lose Gutty kinda to an injury during that game, so we'll get to that going into the game first up in today's episode against Millonarios. But 3 important points in the Europa League for us there, and if we do have a look at the Europa League group table, we are top going into the start of today's episode. I think if we were able to win both of our games, with one of those games being against Crystal Palace, we could secure qualification, but it's going to be easier said than done with the rotation team playing games against both Millonarios and Crystal Palace, but in a good position with 3 games left to play of the Europa League group stage. Off the back of that, we were back into the Serie A, the league here in this World Super League for us. SKC, unfortunately, a 0-0 draw at home against Internacional. It was a pretty dull game, this one. We had more chances than them, more shots on target, but couldn't put anything in the back of the net. But still picking up points, which wasn't too bad, and continued a little bit of a rise up the table that we had going. And then we started December with a league clash against the defending champions, Boca Juniors, away from home too. We brought Mecha in to start just for this little game, with Shallowy a little bit tired and might have even been recovering from an injury at that stage. And of course, Kinda out as well. Cisneros not quite delivering on what he had done in his first game for the club, where he got a goal off the bench, and Mitcha just after half time here got us 1-0 up. Olasunde making his way down the right, puts a ball in. Mitcha at the far post getting that goal, and we go 1-0 up. In fact, it was right before half time, that one. And then just on the other side of half time, we sealed the 3 points. Mitcha with a shot, well saved from the keeper, but it falls to Polito, who more or less set that goal up anyway. And a big 3 points for us there against the defending champions, Boca Juniors. You look at the stats, they dominated that game, but we were clinical enough with our chances to get those 3 points. So that was very nice to say, and that again continued a good rise up the table for us. And then we returned home to take on Tigres in the league game prior to where we pick up in today's episode. A very good performance from us this one was, and it was Felix Mitcha in form again. Polito inside the box here, out to Busio, his shot hits the post. Mitcha, perfect follow-up from him to put that away in the bottom right corner, and we were 1-0 up just before half-time and at half-time. And then shortly after the restart, Johnny F. and Russell makes his way down the right. Polito with a lovely ball, good run from Mitcha, and we make it 2-0 at the 50-minute mark. A penalty in the 62nd minute. Polito taking it, which was interesting. I thought Mitcha might get given the chance to complete his hat-trick, but Polito slots that away, and a very good 3-0 win for us there. You look at the stats, that was a game that, unlike the prior couple, we did dominate and did deserve that scoreline from. So we come into today's episode and a cracking bit of form, and what that means for the league table is it has drastically changed since you saw it in yesterday's episode. We have made our way up to fourth equal, you could almost say, with Santos, but just behind them because of the alphabet at the moment, but on the same points and same goal difference as them. And we do have a game coming up in between the games in today's episode against Valiers. So we have really skyrocketed ourselves with that nice patch of form up from towards the relegation zone up to fifth. It's still quite a condensed table, and behind those top 3 teams, you'll see Palmeiras, Flamengo, and Corinthians have a big gap on the rest of them. But in behind that, we've now got a little bit of a gap on the relegation zone, but only 9 points, considering that good run of form, sustained run of form too, that we did have. You'd almost expect us to be a little bit further away from the relegation teams, but as I said, it is a tight division, this one. So we're in a good position if we can keep up some decent form for the rest of the season. Hopefully relegation will no longer be an issue for us, but we'll hopefully be able to keep our good run of form going in today's episode and see where we end up with that one league game coming up in between the Europa League. But a big turnaround in the league from where you left us off in yesterday's episode, gone from 16th up to 5th and looking a lot more brighter here for staying up in Serie A in the second tier of the World Super League here at Sporting Kansas City. But today the focus is the Europa League, as we said, and we're going to get straight into things. As you would have seen, Gutty kind of did pick up an injury a couple of games ago, twisted ankle, so he is out. Daniel Shaloi just recovering from an injury. So what we're going to do with the rotation team, Daniel Shaloi is actually going to be starting in the rotation team because Felix Mitcha is on fire, as you would have seen from those couple of games since he's had a few starts for the first team. We've used him as a left winger just with that little injury crisis that we did have, and he is looking like an absolute star on the left wing. So that means that Daniel Shaloi, who's not having as good a season, I feel like, as he was last year here at SKC, is going to have to try and earn his way past him to get back into that first rotation. But a good problem to have. We're going to be putting out the rotation, though, for both of the games. You'll see me live comp in today's episode, and Mitcha can keep his first team spot for the Valiers game. And hopefully we can keep this good run of form up and potentially make our way through to those Europa League knockouts with a game in hand. But we'll see. We might have to come back and try and seal that in tomorrow's episode. But first off, Millonarios away from home. We did beat these guys when we met them earlier in the season, 5-0, so a very comprehensive win that was. Hopefully we can do more of the same here, and we'll be back shortly for the first of our 2 games in the Europa League group stage of today's episode. And we do have TV coverage for this game. Millonarios 4-1, going a little bit defensive, but hopefully we can get another good result against these guys, although they do look in decent form themselves. And there is our rotation team, as we said, Shaloi in there with kinda injured and Mitcha stepping up to the first 11. And there's a reminder of how the group looks. If we can get 3 points here, we'll give ourselves a chance of qualifying with a game to go if we can get the job done against Crystal Palace in the second game of today's episode. But it will be us in the light blue, Millonarios in the all white. And let's see if we can get the job done here away from home. 44 minutes gone and we have a free kick. We're yet to get a shot on target in the game, but we finally get our first one from a Graham Zusi free kick, and Isama Mirren gets his head to it, his first goal of the season, and out of nowhere with the first highlight of the half, he gets his head to that bottom left corner. It's a well taken set piece from us, as hopefully we get to have it shown here without an interruption. Good header from Isama Mirren. And right before half time, we do make it 1-0. You look at the stats there. We are well and truly second best. As now we have a corner. It falls to Luke Bolton. And out of nowhere, yet again, we are 2-0 up. And this is a very good late little spurt in the first half. And we may have done enough to seal this game here. Millonarios all over us based on the stats we saw. No highlights, but that ball falling very kindly to Bolton a few minutes after Isama Mirren puts us 1-0 up. And we go into half-time after a very good few minutes. Look at the XG just shoot up there for us. We somehow go into half-time 2-0 up. So what was looking like a pretty average half from us there has turned into quite a good one. Millonarios can feel a little bit hard done by there, just a few lazy minutes late. And they go into half-time 2-0 down. We'll just tell the boys to hopefully play a little bit better in the second half and keep it going for a bit longer. But happy with how this is going. 2-0 up as we kick into the second half. Okay, coming up to the 68-minute mark, we just made a change a few minutes ago where Wintle came on for a 6.5 rated Remy Walter, and we're going to make the rest of our substitutions here with both Bolton and Zusi on red hearts, and Bolton carrying a little bit of an orange injury knock as well. So Olasunde can come on for Graham Zusi, and in terms of right wingers, it will be Johnny Effin Russell to replace Luke Bolton. So we'll get these done. And with 20 minutes to go, it's been a very quiet game highlight-wise, apart from those goals that we did score right before half-time, as it does remain 2-0. 80 minutes gone, and we have a throw in the first highlight of the second half. As I said when we made those substitutions before, very quiet game highlight-wise, but the scoreline's in our favour. Reyes with a shot on the volley there, just over the bar. Might have been on a line where the keeper could have saved it pretty comfortably anyway. But still, as we get later in this game, it remains 2-0, and we have another throw in here. So if we can keep possession from this one and maybe get another chance, we should be taking this game out. That was a poor ball, but in fact, we don't deal with that well. That's a bit poor from Isama Mirren. Moika with a shot, blasts it wide. That was Millonarios' best chance, the only highlight of theirs that we have seen, and we will pull our wingers back just to make sure that we do try and hold on to this lead, as it will be 2-0 with only 4 minutes to go. 3 minutes of added time in this game, but no highlights have happened. It wasn't the most exciting affair, truth be told, but those 2 goals right before half-time give us 3 points away at Millonarios. We do the double against these guys in the Europa League, and we'll have a look and see what that means for the group table going into the game against Crystal Palace, and see if we could, in fact, secure ourselves qualification with a game in hand from this stage. But in the end, that was a good performance from us. We had a higher XG entirely, pretty much, because of those goals that we did score right before halftime. Millonarios had more shots, but not as many on target, not as clinical with their chances. And yeah, that's a good, solid win from us, it has to be said. Not the most exciting performance or anything like that. We looked a little bit average for most of it, but we did enough with those chances that we got. We'll tell the boys that we're happy and see where the group stage table leaves us going into the second game of today's episode. And Crystal Palace are 3 points behind us. They're the only team who could catch us in today's episode. So if we got 3 points against those guys, I'm pretty sure we would be secured of a qualification spot. In fact, we would, because they're the only team who would be able to catch us, and we are playing them. So if we get 3 points against Crystal Palace, pretty sure that we will qualify for the second round at the end of today's episode. So we'll come back shortly with highlights from the game against Valleys, and then we'll crack into that Crystal Palace game. And we are back about to head into the second game of today's episode against Crystal Palace. The league game that we played in between now and then ended up being a 0-0 draw against Valleys. You look at the stats, probably a game that we should have won, but we just weren't quite clinical enough with our chances. Felix Metcha and Johnny Effin Russell, a little bit average for us, which I suppose we can let Metcha off, as he did start off very well in that role. Hopefully he'll return to form sooner rather than later, but probably a game that we should have won, but we'll take the point there. And what that means for the Serie A table, in fact, is we've jumped up a spot, because Santos did drop points on that match week. So we've now found our way up in 4th. So the Rice continues on a great run of form here in the latter half of 2021, much like we are in real life. And we are now in a very good position, albeit now only 8 points away from the relegation zone. So it's still quite a condensed table, but it does look quite rosy for us somewhat, as we are now up in fourth, top of those teams, chasing the top three who have broken away a little bit on the rest. But definitely a big turnaround since the end of yesterday's episode. And we are a few days out from this Crystal Palace game, but we thought we'd bring you guys back now because we have had our youth intake preview. We had a very good youth intake last year. A few of those guys already getting first team football this season, most notably Anthony Reyes in the Europa League, who you're about to see again. But here is our youth intake preview, and yet again has the potential to be a golden generation for the club. So might be similar to last year, which would be very good. I'm not exactly sure how that's happening, but we'll take it, especially if we get a couple of good ones to start off the save, even if it doesn't last too long for now. Anyway, this Blue Hell Worldwide save with FM22 coming up in around about a month's time, but we'll come back shortly and crack into that Crystal Palace game where, as I said, a win could secure us our place in the knockouts of that competition. And here are the team sheets for this Crystal Palace game. Try and get some revenge on these guys after they did outclass us when we met them at Selhurst Park earlier this season. As I said back then, almost a Ted Lasso derby, you could call this one, but we're going in with exactly the same team that we had for the first game of today's episode. Crystal Palace on the right, also looking quite similar, a few regular faces. Wilfred Zaha, of course, was very dangerous when we played them first time around, so hopefully they're not quite as good as they were the first time around, and we can pick up a win, which could see us through those Europa League knockouts here. 5 minutes gone and we are on the ball. That's a terrible tackle there from Masuaku. Arthur Masuaku sees red very early on, and this gives us the perfect chance to try and pick up 3 points against Crystal Palace in the black today, but Masuaku is seeing red. They are down a man early on. 20 minutes gone in this game. No highlights since the red card for Masuaku, but you see how they've sort of changed their formation. They did have a 5-3-2. Now they've just pulled one of their strikers back and replaced them with another defender. So they might not end up being off too badly because of that red card, but hopefully we might still be able to take advantage of it. But they do still look quite solidly set up in defence there, do Crystal Palace. But it does still remain 0-0 after 20 minutes. 37 minutes gone. We have a free kick in a good area of the pitch. Daniel Shalloy hits the post off the Zusi free kick. We are back in position just outside the box. Doyle Hayes tries to fire one in. The shot's blocked. Gets cleared away to Bolt, and a good little period for us here, but some good chances as well to try and get a goal on the board, but still it remains 0-0, 10 minutes shy of half-time. And that is half-time. A good chance there at the 37-minute mark for us, a couple in fact, but it does still remain 0-0. We are definitely dominating the game with that man advantage. As I showed you guys, may not be hurting them too much, as all they did was take an extra striker off and put that defender back on for him. But we're definitely looking the better team. They have not threatened us at all, and hopefully we can keep that going in the second half and get the goal, which would potentially see us through to those Europa League knockouts. We are going to make one change at halftime. Behind my head, Ray is on a 6.4 rating. I just think with that extra man advantage, Pulido could get a goal, might be a little bit more lethal than Ray is potentially, and that could be what sees us through to that next round early. So Pulido will come on for Ray as the one change at halftime as we try and get a goal, as I said, to make our way through to the knockouts against the 10 men of Crystal Palace. Early highlight to start the second half here in the 46th minute. The ball gets cleared out there from Crystal Palace, but it's a Martin to tidy things up and look to play out from the back, and hopefully we can make the most of that man advantage that we do have, as I've been saying since quite early on when Masuaku went and two-footed Bolton, I think it was from memory, and gave us that advantage quite rightly. Now Doyle Hayes from a long way out. What a strike that is from the Irish box-to-box midfielder, and we do go 1-0 up. It took a heck of a strike to do it, but we are going to take that all day long, more or less out of nowhere. It came from Walter back to Ili Sanchez. Doyle Hayes took a little bit of time to wave things up, unleash that. It's a wonderful strike into the top right corner, and just after half-time, we do go 1-0 up against the 10 men of Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
66 minutes gone, and unfortunately that halftime substitution that we made has backfired, because we're going to have to make another one here, and this is going to make things quite interesting. Alan Pulido off with a red injury. Hopefully that isn't too bad. Just weighing things up in terms of options that we do have. I think what we're going to do, as you can see there, is move Shalloy up to striker is finishing a little bit better than Felix Mecha, and hopefully Mecha can keep improving in that left wing role where he has looked quite dangerous since coming in to the main squad. So we'll make that substitution. That's going to be our second substitution, but unfortunately only looks like one because of the fact the replacement didn't get injured. But with 20 minutes to go, it still remains 1-0 to SKC. 83 minutes gone here now, and we are going to make our last substitution. We've got two players on red hearts here, Walter and Bolton. I think what we might do is bring on Sasha Jala, just because we could go with two defensive midfielders and get that result, which would see us through the Europa League knockout stages. So we'll just go to a two defensive midfield free instead of our usual setup, and just see what that does with the box-to-box midfielder remaining there with Doyle Hayes. And we'll also pull our wingers back with only 7 minutes to go, but we do still have the goal advantage as we get into these last few minutes against Crystal Palace. 86 minutes gone. We have a throw in a good area of the pitch for us, although not quite as far up as I first thought there, but with those that extra defensive midfielder on, hopefully we can see this out. We have slowed the tempo down, told the boys to time waste just a little bit, because I think the way things stand, we would be going through to the knockouts after this game, and the result against Monza, who currently are in second, wouldn't matter. It's a wonderful ball from Felix Mecha, and Felix continues to be on fire, and that will surely do it as Bolton does a roly-poly or something there. Not too sure about the celebration, but we can start to celebrate, because I think we are already going to be securing our place in the knockouts of the Europa League. It's a wonderful ball from Felix for Luke Bolton, the two wingers combining. You'll see the run here. We'll just check whether he was onside. He must have been. It's a really well-timed run and ball, and the goalkeeper gets called out at his near post, and surely now we can see this out 2-0 up, although there's a ball over for Crystal Palace, but they don't get on the end of that, and they have 2 minutes to try and turn this around as we look to get some revenge on them after they somewhat embarrassed us earlier this season at Selhurst Park. Looked far the better team, but the red card to Masuaku here has somewhat left them in the lurch, but we have made the most of that eventually in the second half to grab 2 goals and go 2-0 up, and we are on the attack again. Bolton inside the box, tight angle, tries to fire that into the roof of the net, but it just goes high, and it does remain 2-0 with only 4 minutes to go. We enter added time, and we are going to be beating Crystal Palace. We'll just check the points table shortly off the back of this, but a good performance in the end against the team. And I suppose the big concern that we've got out of this game is the Pulido injury. Hopefully that isn't too serious, but we did play quite well, look the better team, albeit, as I said, we did have that man advantage that no doubt helped, but a good result from us there, a very good performance from the rotation team against Crystal Palace, and we'll see what that means for the Europa League, and we'll also check up on that Pulido injury. And we have secured qualification for the Europa League knockouts with that result. The last game against Monza is only going to matter to see who finishes top and who finishes second, but the other teams doing us a favour there were Malaga beating Cercle Bruges and Monza beating Millonarios. Those two teams could have kept themselves in the hunt with points in those games while we defeated Crystal Palace, but they didn't get them, and that means that us and Monza are confirmed to be making our way through to the knockouts of the Europa League. So good to see that we could match our performance in that competition again here this season. So that's the good news out of the way, but of course we did have that slight worry with Pulido going off injured, and unfortunately he's out for quite a long time. 3 to 4 months Alan Pulido gone with a torn calf muscle, so that's going to really test the depth at striker. Anthony Reyes has been performing very well, the 16-year-old, but now we're going to be calling on the likes of Wilson Harris to try and back him up. He did do a good job in that area last season. Haven't used him as much this year just because I wanted to see what Reyes could do, and he has done a good job for us and grown quite nicely. But we will see what Wilson Harris or maybe even someone else can do in that backup role with the remaining couple of weeks that we do have before the transfer window opens. So that's something else to keep in mind, the likes of Harris, or if I find someone else there in our reserves and under 18s who can step up into the first team, they'll have a couple of weeks to try and prove that they deserve a spot in that first rotation. Otherwise, we might go looking out for another player to come in, potentially on loan, just because we don't really have any other spots to fill up registration-wise. So it might have to be an under-21 player that we bring in to try and cover Alan Pulido for a few months anyway, but that's a really bad injury. Hopefully that doesn't cost us too much, and if it does, it doesn't hurt us massively, as hopefully that little good run of form that we did have in the league will just be enough to see us be able to avoid relegation and stay up potentially in the top half of the table. So that's a little bit of a downer to be ending today's episode on, but we will see how the boys who step in for Pulido in that rotation team do go now. And yeah, just see if we can get by without Pulido, or if we need to bring in a better striker to get by while he is out with that torn calf muscle. But if you did enjoy today's episode, 2 wins in the Europa League, which saw us qualify for the knockouts of that competition, then please do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't done so already and enjoy what you see here in this series or on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. In terms of when we will be coming back for the next episode, I don't think there's any point now in showing the Monza game because there's not a lot riding on it. So what we might do is come back for another cup double similar to what we had in yesterday's episode. So Fluminense we've got in the Super League Cup round of 64. Hopefully we can do decently there. And we've also got at the start of January when the transfer window does open up. So we might even be doing some business in and around then, depending on how players do. In the meantime, we will be taking on Getafe in the FA Cup 8th round. Already met our objectives for both of those competitions, but I suppose it could determine what we do a little bit in the transfer windows. We'll probably put the rotation team out in those games, try and focus our first team on the league. And there's actually a big game in between those 2 cup games against top of the table Palmeiras. But we'll see what our backup strikers who we do bring in can do in those games in the cups, and whether we need to bring in someone on loan potentially to cover Pulido while he is out. Quite happy with Anthony Reyes, but we'll see what Wilson Harris or maybe someone else can do in those games, and whether we do need to go and look for a striker just to cover for the rest of the season. But that will be what's coming up tomorrow. Will be a little bit of transfer business potentially and some cup games against Fluminense and Getafe. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I will see you then. Cheers.
Sometimes it can